The case against Sam Bankman-Fried now in the jury's hands. Deliberations just getting underway, which will cap the month-long trial. Joining us now is Zeke Faux, Bloomberg investigative reporter and author of Number Go Up, who has been in the courtroom throughout the trial. So, Zeke, your perspective here is really valuable because you interviewed Sam Bankman-Fried. You've been watching this drama closely. I'm just interested to start, Zeke, just your thoughts about this trial. What have you learned? What are your big takeaways?
So going into the trial, I thought that things looked really bad for Sam. Like, it seemed pretty obvious that a big fraud had been committed and that he was responsible for it. But amazingly, like, it's just gotten worse every day. Essentially, the prosecution brought in as witnesses each of his top lieutenants. And when they got into the details, the jury maybe got a little sleepy. I saw some people nodding off. But basically what each of them said was, hey, we did a big fraud. I'm really sorry, and I did it with that guy with the curly hair over there. So Sam finally had to take the stand in his own defense to try to counter some of this, but he didn't really have too much to say. When the prosecution cross-examined him, he just kept turning to, I don't recall, I don't recall, I don't recall. He really didn't present an alternative story that the jury could latch onto.
Yeah, at what point, one point, I should say, the prosecution brought up your book, right? Sort of handed it to Sam Bankman-Fried and said, look, what you are saying, it does not necessarily jive with what you have said in the past. I mean, how incriminating was that testimony? Because there was a lot of debate about whether, in fact, he should take the stand leading up to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the prosecution was basically going for almost bonus points here, where they're trying to argue that even if you only listen to the words of Sam Bankman-Fried, that itself is enough to convict. And so they brought up this interview I did with him back in November 2022, just after FTX collapsed, but before the cops showed up. I went down to the Bahamas. I interviewed him for a whole day at his $30 million penthouse. And I asked him, hey, was there anything funny going on between your hedge fund Alameda and your exchange FTX? And he admitted to me that Alameda didn't have to follow the same rules as everybody else on the exchange. He said there was more leeway. And like, that's a big thing to admit right there. That could be a fraud right there. And so the prosecutor asked him about that. And then when he said he didn't remember saying anything like that, she pulled out a literal copy of Number Go Up and walked it over to the witness stand and handed it to him and had him read parts of it to try to refresh his memory. But he claimed he didn't remember saying those things.
That's amazing, Zeke. Incredible detail there. I'm also interested, just what was it like, Zeke? And I know this is hard to get your head around, but what was the mood like in the courtroom when he took the stand? How did you see or hear people, how they were responding and reacting to him?
I definitely saw people perk up and start paying attention when he was being cross-examined. It was one of the most dramatic parts of the trial. But it's hard to read this jury. They range from 30 to maybe 60 years old, and they've got a whole range of jobs. Some of them have actually worked in the financial industry. Others have, or in the medical field. It's hard to know what they're going to make of this crypto world. And I think, Sam's only hope is that they might be so baffled by this that they're not willing to convict. The prosecution has tried to boil it down and say, listen, forget about crypto. This is a scam. These people stole money. He was the mastermind. And they presented a lot of evidence suggesting that.
Zeke, I'm thinking back to a year ago when we saw the fall of FTX. Certainly the commentary around that was that with FTX goes crypto, that there was a lot of calls for sort of the doom and gloom. Sure, I'm looking at Bitcoin prices right now. It's roughly at 35,000. It's not at the highs that we saw in 2021, but I'm curious if you've been surprised by how the shakedown has actually happened a year later.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly have been. I've long since given up on trying to predict Bitcoin prices. The people who like Bitcoin just love it so much that nothing, I think, seemingly will ever change their minds. But just in the last few weeks, some of the other coins like Solana have started pumping again. And I have to ask, who are these people who are buying into crypto now after seeing so many of the biggest companies in crypto revealed to be frauds. My expectation is that people are going to be a lot more skeptical the next time some young curly-haired genius comes along and says, "Have I got a great new app for you?" You know, I still find it hard to believe we're going to ever see another bubble like this one that we just lived through.
But, you know, it's interesting, though, Zeke, because you look at Bitcoin, I mean, it has seen this rebound. I mean, listen, your point is taken. I mean, we are way, way off that $69,000 record there, but it has rebounded in part, Zeke, I think, because at least among crypto fans, there's just all this excitement about whether, in fact, we'll get, you know, this spot Bitcoin ETF approved. One, I'm just curious whether you think it'll get approved. And second, do you feel like all the excitement about that product is warranted?
So this is just my opinion, but I think it will get approved. I don't really see how you can deny people the opportunity to trade Bitcoin when you've already given them. There's so many ways to buy Bitcoin now. You could go on, you know, Coinbase or Robinhood. So it hardly seems like such a big deal for the regulators if there's one more way that people could buy Bitcoin. And flip side is, I think this won't have as big an impact as maybe the boosters do, because I think at this point, if you really want Bitcoin, you got a lot of options. You can go buy Bitcoin on all sorts of different apps. So I'm not sure this is going to unlock like a huge amount of demand.